Good morning. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is February 16th, 2026. Welcome to the podcast. Today is a beautiful day. The sun is out and it's going to be in the 60s. So it is a good day for people to listen to a podcast as they are walking or running or just even riding in the car. Today, I want to talk about the U.S. federal government policy on Save America Act, which is an updated version of the SAVE Act, which passed the House of Representatives on February 11th. It was a narrow vote, and the only reason I mention narrow votes now is that, as you are aware, anything in Congress now is pretty well divided down the middle of the country. The House of Representatives is a good barometer of what the people in the United States think collectively because every district is representative. Okay, so what did they pass? Proof of citizenship for registration. And let me make sure that you know that this isn't law yet. It still has to go to the Senate. So, proof of citizenship requires individuals to present documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. What do they mean? They mean a passport or birth certificate in person to register for federal elections. Nationwide photo ID requirement implements a federal mandate for voters to show a valid photo ID to cast a ballot in person. Then you have the mail-in voting restrictions and the voter roll maintenance. And the difference in the mail-in voting is you had to provide a ID to validate that you are who you say you are. And then the voter roll maintenance was based on verifying that the voters are accurate and taking off people who shouldn't be on there in the first place. Legal and penalties establishes criminal penalties for election officials who register individuals without the required documentations and allows private citizens to sue for noncompliance. All right. So out of the 4 or 5 things said, the real action is in two of these. The nationwide photo ID requirement has been a huge issue in the country at least 15 years. Now, it is not in all of the states, and I would tell you probably predominantly is in blue states. I think that that is fair. And I'll tell you a little later on the reasons why people don't want to have to show ID. Several years ago, I shared with you that I never really thought about it. When I walked in there for photo ID, I had already registered, and registration meant showing them a bill or something like that saying that I lived at this residence. And it didn't seem to be a big deal then, but then once I started thinking about uh, if to verify if it was me or not, it makes sense to me to show an ID to who you are. That's the first thing. The other one is this legal and penalties. This is new. Criminal penalties for election officials who register individuals without the required documentation and allows private citizens to sue for noncompliance. Here's what caught my attention. I used to talk to my dad about elections, and he was an election official in Concord, North Carolina, and he told me that, and he didn't say that they were cheating. He just said that at times he was surprised at what folks were doing in there. So the bottom line on that is these election officials can run that precinct any way that they want to. And he said that they were doing that at times, even though you have people in there watching the other side. So that was some good information. All right. So next, let's move into what's currently on the books. All right. So they passed the bill in February 11th. So you already know that. All right. So in the Senate, the bill faces a battle. As you know, you have to get 60 votes, and it looks like currently that there is not an effort in the Senate for this to go through. Well, they could change it so that get rid of that filibuster, but it doesn't seem like. And they always use the excuse of, well, and if we change the rules, then the other side will go and do it. Okay, well, we're never going to get anything done like that. So if you're looking at this particular law at this point, or it becoming a law, I don't think that you need to be worried quite yet. Now, here's the thing. So, well, let me do the criticisms first. Now, this is deja vu for me because this is a specific bill and it encompasses the 4 or 5 things that I was telling you about. The initially a couple of years ago, the Republican side was trying to get nationwide photo ID requirements. So I've talked about that. Here come the critics. All right. And this includes voting rights groups and Democratic leaders argue that the bill is a form of voter suppression. They note that non-citizen voting is already illegal and rare. Okay, so that was a mouthful. Non-citizen voting is illegal and rare. It is illegal in all of the states because, for example, in Illinois, it's in the state constitution, in case you didn't know that. Is it rare? Well, if we look at, and I went and I looked this up in several examples that were given. Well, the examples that were given for the even check-in were in red states, Republican states, and there would have to be audits in blue states like California, I would say even in Illinois, to validate before somebody calls it rare. All right. Now, and here is their favorite thing to say. Opponents claim the law would disproportionately disenfranchise married women. Disenfranchised can stand alone, which basically means that if you put that as a requirement, people are not going to want to come and vote because they feel like that they're being targeted for other reasons. Okay. Married women, those whose current legal names do not match their birth certificates. Now that one blows my mind because I had never even heard of that. Okay. Next one is low income and minority communities. They always throw this out, and I'm not quite sure why they always throw this out. Like minority people are just helpless and can't do anything unless they are controlled and given money to get this done, or because that's what they used to use as a reason for not having a photo ID. And it's just, yeah. And they even said, well, minorities can't afford passports. They're a couple $100, but you save up, and if you have a credit card, there you go. Okay? Rural voters, those who might have to travel long distances. Now, I think that mail-in ballots is fine. Maybe putting the ID part, but why don't we have mobile voting trucks to go to these rural areas? And also, a lot of times, they used to talk about this 20 years ago. The polling places used to go to these rural areas, and they would give people they would give them transportation to come and vote. And now all of a sudden, they're acting like that this is a new issue. So these are the major criticisms. Now, I haven't even talked about what is thought about the illegal immigrants, but I'm going to get to that in a second. So, quick little alibi here. That photo ID requirement, I believe, based on my reading, that probably the Trump administration is going to do up an executive order just on the nationwide photo ID requirement to vote in a national election. That's what I believe. Now, no one has said that that's what they were going to do. I'm saying it. So that is an opinion. All right. So according to the law currently in most states and the federal directives and in the immigration law, illegal immigrants and other non-citizens are prohibited from voting in all national federal elections. Now, why am I saying that? Okay, the details are in the language, and what some people don't realize, when Congress passes certain bills that end up becoming laws, they change the language of it, and then they don't use like illegal immigrants or non-citizens. They'll say like residents in the state and stuff like that, for example, which basically means that they can do things that they wouldn't normally have to do, and they skirt the laws like that. All right. So it is a federal crime for a non-citizen to vote in national elections. We all know that. And it also says providing false information is a felony and all that stuff. Now, the only one that we know about recently that the federal government is doing, because they've been clashing and it's been on the mainstream media, is the voter roll maintenance. They are required to maintain accurate voter lists and regularly cross-check them against the database, like Social Security records and all that stuff. Now, that is the Trump administration actually was told that states don't have to do that, and they don't have to police them like that. And I'll have to look up, I don't know right off the top of my head, why the court said that they didn't have to do it. So the voter roll maintenance is not something that the Trump administration has won on, or the SAVE Act. All right. So here we go with the metrics telling us how they know that non-citizens are voting. As I told you before, if you're not doing a good sampling of the United States, to include lots of blue states, because when the blue states like Illinois, they're going to say what I said earlier, well, and it's against the law, why should we check in the first place? And then they're basing, so the Democrats, and I have to call them out, they'll say, well, it's not an issue in the country because it's not an issue in Utah, Georgia, and there was a third state. And if it was, it's very minimal. But that's only because those are the states who actually checked. So there cannot be analysis if It's not a sampling of the whole country or some of these blue states. So while non-citizens cannot vote in national state elections, some municipalities allow them to vote in local only contests. That is a huge, in my opinion, huge point that's not being told. And I keep mentioning this because I'm baffled because a lot of local elections control funding, and funding is what gets people money who are in need. So if they are promoting certain things like not checking who's getting health care, for example, that could be a huge issue because it is the locally elected officials are controlling the purse strings. So, what do you think about this? Do you think that the Save America Act or the SAVE Act should be passed by Congress and become the new law? And can the federal government enforce it? And oh, by the way, if it doesn't, then we know that the midterm elections are coming up, and the federal government, the Trump administration, is laser focused on that, and that's why they are pushing it. But what do you think? And also, how about this nationwide photo ID requirement? Do you think that any individual should have to show who they are when they go and vote? This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think and have a great day.